monitoring is a key area that can be optimized very heavily to prevent a lot of tickets from happening. A very good example of that is clock drifting. Clock drifting is something that we see a lot in older networks or slower servers, where the time will work off the real clock. And what's going to happen with that is that the clock drifting will cause a situation where the users may not be able to log into the network, they may not be able to print or access network resources. It's actually quite a simple fix. You can do a monitoring service for it and say, I'm going to monitor if the clock drifts too far. And from there, if it does for any reason, you can actually set up a policy to say, fix this clock drifting for me by doing a self-healing. And the self-healing would simply sync back to the time servers. If you're in a DC, you would sync to an external time server. And if you're on a workstation, you would sync to DC or to whatever servers available at the time. And that would remove a lot of those tickets from happening. Now, I still recommend creating tickets and typically automatically closing them from your RMMs. That way you don't see them, but you can actually report on a monthly or quarterly basis and say how many times these issues occur and how many times did we automatically fix it, so that you can show that value back to the end customer. Another example of this is BitLocker. BitLocker is something that is becoming very predominant in any corporate environments because the security of laptops is very important and devices being stolen is becoming more and more problematic. So what you can do is you can set up a monitoring service that will make sure that BitLocker is enabled on all your machines. BitLocker is a heavy time suck on the initial setup because you have to go through and configure it by hand or through a script or through whatever mechanism you're going to choose. But once you've done it, you want to make sure your users don't turn it off. And too often I found that users turn it off because they feel that like, oh, BitLocker is going to slow down my machine, which is typically not really the case. So what I would recommend is to put a monitoring service to make sure that if the user turns it on, you can actually be aware of it and you can actually turn it back on through a self-healing, or you can get notified to go talk to that user and say, please don't do that, there's a security issue for this. And what you want to do with the monitoring of it is you can go one step further and you can also collect the BitLocker keys, the encryption keys, so that if the user ever has an issue where he has to restore his machine or he has to do a system restore of some sort, you can actually call you and say, hey, I need my BitLocker key now. You can give it to him right there on the spot and you don't have to worry about trying to find them somewhere in some third-party location. So that's available to you through your RMM. The last thing I want to talk about for today is monitoring thresholds and the importance of tweaking them. Very often when I go visit partners, we look at the active issues or the alert boards from the RMM platform, and one thing that I too often find is that partners leave all the alerts there, and when I ask them what are those about, they'll say like, oh, we don't care about those, it's okay. But sometimes there'll be hundreds or thousands of them that they don't care about, which generates a tremendous amount of noise into their alerting board, which their technician has to sift through to understand what's important or not. So for example, you've seen what if a patch status goes into a failed state because patch didn't install last night, but they're going to install tomorrow, then don't worry about it. Tweak your threshold so that it notifies you if it has not installed for 12 days or 10 days or 5 days, whatever you're comfortable with as a threshold. That way, whenever it goes failed, you know to worry about it, you know to action it. So the importance of this comes from allowing you to have the data that you need at your fingertip when you need to and having alerts that make sense to you. There's no point in having an RMM if you're going to get thousands of alerts that you're not going to action. Whereas if you can spend a few hours tweaking those thresholds, you can actually get very valuable data from it and you'll be able to use it very easily.